I would respectfully say to Bibi Netanyahu, please stay out of our politics. If you've got that kind of commentary to make, you are not helping. The vast majority of countries in the world recognise Palestine as a state. The vast majority support a two-state solution. Indeed, when I was Prime Minister, Israel notionally supported a two-state solution. It doesn't any longer.
As we all know, Israel has never really genuinely supported a two-state solution, and indeed assassinated their own prime minister, Yitzhak Rabin, back in 1995 for being the only one who was seriously pushing for Palestinians and their ability to pursue self-determination. But the man that you just heard from, with the Australian accent, of course, is Australia's former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull. And he wants Israelis to essentially butt out of Australia's business and their affairs following the Bondi Beach massacre that took place over the weekend. Before I give you more details, Cenk, your 2 cents?
Yeah, it's about time somebody stood up to the Israelis and fought back. And look, I watched another video today, Anna, and Netanyahu, specifically in that video, threatened every Western country and said, I'm warning you, you better not defy us. So, all right, apparently we're taking our life into our own hands by defying almighty Israel. But thank you to the Australians for fighting back.
So Turnbull was responding specifically to Netanyahu's, in my opinion, absolutely insane statements immediately in the aftermath of the massacre that took place on Bondi Beach. It was an anti-Semitic attack. Obviously, the individuals who were targeted were Jewish. They were at the beach for the first day of Hanukkah. They're celebrating, they're having a good time. But here's how Netanyahu reacted and responded to it immediately. Take a look.
Your call for a Palestinian state pours full fuel on the anti-Semitic fire. It rewards Hamas terrorism. It emboldens those who menace Australian Jews and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets. Anti-Semitism is a cancer. It spreads when leaders stay silent. It retreats when leaders act. I call upon you to replace weakness with action, appeasement with resolve. Instead, Prime Minister, you replaced weakness with weakness.
So just to summarize Netanyahu's worldview, anti-Semitism is when you recognize the humanity and push for the self-determination of the Palestinian people. That is considered anti-Semitic, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. So in other words, he placed the blame of what happened over the weekend squarely on the Australian government for wanting to recognize a Palestinian state, for understanding and recognizing the humanity of the Palestinian people. That was his first reaction. And just like what happened in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, Netanyahu jumps onto a mic and uses and exploits the tragedy for his own political purposes. He is a disgusting individual, a disgusting human being, and does a disservice to the nation of Israel, considering the fact that they keep electing him as their leader. He is not doing you any favors. But what do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, look, it makes me think that these attacks are much more likely to be false flag operations. And by the way, if there's an attack in Europe soon, it was Israel, because he's doing the same exact playbook that he did to Australia. He said, look, I sent you a letter warning you, you better not recognize the Palestinians. If you call them human like us, if you don't agree that they are inferior and should have no sovereignty, if you don't agree to massive, disgusting Israeli racism towards Palestinians, there's going to be a terror attack by them, wink. Wait, why would they attack you if you recognize Palestine as a state? All of a sudden, there's all of these attacks across the West after we've been warned by Netanyahu. So no, I don't trust any of our governments, and Netanyahu's a dangerous war criminal. And you think that he's like, oh, no, my boundary is I only murder Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims.
No, he's got no boundaries.
But I'm swell to everyone else.
Hannibal directive.
No.
Hannibal directive. It is not beneath them to literally kill their own people. Look into the Hannibal directive. I mean, it's disgusting. But Cenk, I don't know. I mean, it does seem like what he's saying is a little logical. So just hear me out. wouldn't it be true that Muslims would want to retaliate against a country that recognizes fellow Muslims? Like, how does this make any sense? It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, the Israelis are a danger to the world, and they've always been. Honestly, like if we're being honest about it, it's not just Netanyahu. The Israelis have been racist towards the Palestinians for 58 straight years at a bare minimum, let alone 75 years.
Yep.
Because for 58 years, they've been doing an occupation that is worse than apartheid, where they say these people are inferior to us and should never have the freedom to rule themselves. Their government has voted to never allow a Palestinian state. Every accusation they have is a confession. So they say the Palestinians are dangerous to the West, the Muslims are dangerous to the West. They mean Israel is dangerous to the West. They say, oh, we're worried that we can't exist. You have nukes, you have Iron Dome, you have the best military in the region. You have no threat to your existence at all. That's just a giant, ridiculous lie where they pretend that they have a threat to their existence. Meanwhile, they say the Palestinians should never be allowed to exist. You sound like Germans. Oh, the Jews shouldn't be allowed to exist. And if you don't let us kill all the Jews, well, then you're being anti-German. Sorry, and actually I'm definitely not sorry, but that's exactly how Netanyahu and the entire Israeli government sounds.
So I wanted to just note that while there are some individuals in the elite class, I guess, in Australia's political world who are willing to push back against Israel, meaning Israel doesn't have a complete stranglehold over Australia. That's unfortunately not the case here in the United States, where we have a murderer's row of politicians lining up to essentially regurgitate Israeli propaganda to goad the United States into war, goad Americans into hating people based on their faith, if they're Muslim. And a prime example of that is Senator Tom Cotton. Here's what he had to say.
Australia and some European nations have recognized a non-existent Palestinian state in an open and blatant reward for Hamas's depraved attack on Israel. That's the exact opposite of what we should be doing.
Now, the attack, the massacre that took place on Bondi Beach had nothing to do with Hamas whatsoever. In fact, 2 homemade ISIS flags were found in the vehicle of one of the perpetrators. And ISIS is a foe of Hamas, not a friend. In fact, ISIS has killed a ton of Muslims, which would lead me to believe that Israel maybe doesn't mind ISIS as much, which is why they're trying to pin the blame on Hamas. But nonetheless, that incredibly disgusting video was posted on X, and in the mentions, I thought there was an interesting interaction with Grok. So one individual by the name of Salman Sufi writes, how many times has Tom Cotton tweeted for justice for American citizens killed by IDF and settler violence versus tweeting for supporting IDF? And Grok notes that based on a review of Senator Tom Cotton's X posts, he has not tweeted calling for justice for American citizens killed by IDF or settler violence. He has tweeted over 100 times in support of the IDF and Israel's military actions since 2023. Cenk, back over to you.
All right, so first of all, I want to bring back the graphic from the last story, show you the 9 Americans that were killed by Israel with absolutely no accountability. So every accusation is a confession. It's actually Israel that murders American citizens with impunity, utter impunity. We ask for no accountability for 9 US citizens murdered by Israeli settlers and the IDF. They can kill us anytime they want. So he says the Palestinians shouldn't be able to exist. It's an infinitely racist and bigoted point of view, of course. And the Israelis demand racism from America. They demand that we hate Muslims. They demand that we discriminate against Palestinians. And our politicians who are dogs to Israel do that. Now, again, if you say, well, Cenk, are you sure about that? How are you sure? Well, yesterday on the show, you saw Lindsey Graham and John Fetterman doing that same exact talking point. Because there was a shooting in Australia, we shouldn't allow Palestine to exist. So how did Fetterman, who's a Democrat, and Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton, who are Republicans, get the same exact talking point? Well, they got the same exact talking point from their Israeli handlers. They literally hand them things to say, and it's not a trope, it's real. Then the puppets get out there and go, oh, we must ban Palestine from existing because there was one shooting in Australia. Okay, all right, well, look, I mean, again, if we said likewise about the Israelis, that Israel shouldn't be allowed to exist, it should be wiped out, they would say, oh, worst anti-Semite in the world, you're the worst, ban you forever, right? And I would never think that. I don't want any harm to come to Israel. But they say we want harm to come to Palestine. We don't even want them to exist. We want to wipe them out like we're freaking Nazis. And they get all of our sick, disgusting politicians to make that point on television. And by the way, all the national media. Oh, please come on and tell us how the Palestinians are evil. So, okay, you can say anything you like, but Israel obviously controls this country, obviously.
And the final thing I want to note, for anyone who doesn't believe that ISIS is actually an enemy of Hezbollah, Hamas, two proxies of Iran, let's just take a quick look at what the Times of Israel reported. This is a headline from 2019 after ISIS militants in Gaza killed a Hamas member. Hamas and ISIS hate Israel and each other. Years-long conflict between terror groups resurfaces as 3 Hamas policemen in Gaza killed this week in suicide attack blamed on Islamic State. In fact, Israel has been arming the Popular Forces in Gaza. That is a militant group that has ties to ISIS. In fact, its former leader, Abu Shabab, who was just recently killed by Hamas, was caught trafficking drugs that were supplied by ISIS into the Gaza Strip and was punished for that. So it is amazing to me that while there is evidence to indicate that the 2 terrorists who carried out the massacre on Bondi Beach were inspired by ISIS, Israel's not attacking ISIS. Israel and its supporters are specifically pinning the blame on groups that had nothing to do with that massacre. And why are they doing that? To goad us into war with Iran. That's what this is about.
Yeah, last 2 things. Things that make you go, Isn't that weird that ISIS has attacked almost every Middle Eastern country, but never Israel? What, are they scared of Israel? Do they think Israel's the good guys? Why do they never attack Israel? That's so weird. And by the way, if you don't know, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu got Hamas about $1 billion through Qatar, and he's been funding them all along.
Yep.
So this is not a secret. They say it. Oh, hey, look at that. We fund our enemies so that they can attack us. And if you don't know, guys, Israel can be crossed in a helicopter in 45 minutes. The Hamas attack on October 7th started at 6:30 a.m. Israeli troops arrived at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
But don't say that there was a stand down order. That's anti-Semitic and conspiracy brained.
Yeah. Okay, some of the troops got there at 3:30 in the afternoon. It started at 6:30. The most lethal, efficient force on planet Earth, IDF, took 4 or 5 hours to get across Israel. Come on. Yeah. And it was a coincidence that Netanyahu gave Hamas $1 billion. And it's a coincidence that ISIS never attacks Israel, it only attacks Muslim countries. I'm sure all of this is an incredibly helpful coincidence to Israel. But finally, guys, let me ask you something. The talking point that you saw Graham Fetterman and Cotton make, it's identical. You saw it with your own eyes over the last 2 days. So where did they get that talking point? Because they're in different parties. If it was a Republican talking point, Fetterman presumably would not have had it. If it was a Democratic one, certainly the other guys wouldn't have had it. No, they got it from Israel, because Israel owns those politicians. They own most of our politicians. We need to have a revolt in this country because we don't run our own country. That's just a fact. And so what we're gonna do about it is the real question.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.